In this demonstration, I'm going to talk about the animations, graphic element animations that I haven't discussed in previous videos. So I'm going to just draw a rectangle so that we can get to the animation window to start. I'm going to double click on the rectangle. And the first one is hide show. And hide show, if I recall, is available for all of the elements. If the element is hidden, no other animations take place. So for example, the mouse up, mouse down won't occur. Video recording will continue, but you won't be able to stop it because it will be invisible. On off is a way to flash the element. So if you select a source of digital and it becomes true, this would flash between on and off. If it was inverted, it would flash when it was off. Most things also have on off. Brush controls the brush color. We talked about this earlier. You can have a foreground and background color into style. You can select digital or analog. Pen, we also discussed earlier. It is the area around a rectangle or circle, for example. It also applies to some scales for some of the analog gauges or meters. Horizontal position is the position you want the element to be in. For example, when it's true. For digital, it's the false is where it is at design time. So if we change this to 88, it would move to 88 or to the right of where it is and be at 88. And here would be for different positions. I've seen this used, for example, to simulate a conveyor belt. They just put in 0 through 10 and then moved 5 or 10 pixels at a time. And then the counter rolled over and started back at the beginning. Vertical is the same as the last one. It just has to do with the vertical position. Increasing numbers go down, decreasing numbers go up. Width is the width of the element. Select a source, the anchor point. If left, the left with the right would grow. If it's center, both sides would grow. If it was the right, then the left would grow. Height is the same thing except vertically. Same kind of anchor thing. Anchors at the top grows down, anchors in the middle grows out, anchors at the bottom grows up. Rotation. Not everything supports rotation, but many things do. The polygon can be rotated. You can say how many degrees do you want it to rotate when the digital source is true. For the analog, the checkbox on the analog panel is used to rotate an object clockwise, the amount of the analog value. So what that is saying is whatever the tag is, it needs to be between 0 and 360, and then it will rotate based on that value. So if it's 180, it will rotate 180 degrees. Text style. Text style is the style of the text. You can set these different values. The color doesn't apply here. It uses the foreground color for the brush for the color. This is, ignore this. Text reading is, we've used this before. It's a way to show the value of a tag in the text. So this ASDF would be replaced with the value of the source process variable analog. Text string is a way to have a string. So for example, you could have false. We could change this to false, and if digital, we could replace it with true, or we could put in text here for whatever we wanted. High, abandon ship, whatever you needed. Gauges we've covered. There are a lot of different gauges in this setting. This is used to change the zones based on external parameters. For example, we had a customer who, depending on the wellhead pressure, needed to change the low and high zones. Percent fill we covered in another video. On mouse down and on mouse up we covered in the mouse commands video. The move horizontal is just a way to move an element. So when the source is true, it will move it whatever is set here. For example, you could use it as a valve open or close if you're animating a valve. Move vertical is the same as horizontal, it's just vertical. Analog slider we discussed. So, oh, wrong one. We discussed in the other video having to do with gauges. Time and date we discussed in the gauges video. System variable. System variable is a text field, and it's a way to build, for example, an alarm display. You can select what section of the system variables you want. For example, you could say active alarms tag name, and then you could say I want the first tag name, the most recent, or go back inside of the list. So you could make a scrolling list, for example, of active alarms that showed the most recent 15 or the previous 15 and scroll it up or down. That's what this is about. You could also use it for the value. You could put in the value of to show how many alarms are in the queue. Just a way to build a little mini alarm display. You get the times and their descriptions and stuff. MA station we discussed in the animations for analogs. Trends we've already discussed. Video we discussed also. Text label is another text value. It's a way to get the text values of a point's configuration onto the screen. So for example, you wanted to show the item description. It's a way to get that value onto the screen. Drop list we also discussed in when we discussed the buttons video. Text string EX is a way to, we discussed this on the buttons ones, but it's a way to have values associated with strings. So you could say, oh, I want to have 5 strings, and those values I want it to be 1, 10, 19, 55, 40. And then you could put in text for whatever you want. And when you tag it to a source, it looks for the value, finds 10, and then displays the string that's entered for 10. Shockwave we discussed under the gauges animation. Digital grid, analog grid, knob switch, indicating push button we all discussed when we discussed the gauges and the buttons. Script globals for this text is a way to display a script global in a text field. So if you're changing it via a script or via a button, you can have it echo to the window. For example, the number of times a pump has been started or stopped. Animated GIF we discussed. Animated arc. So if we have an arc, we can define the runtime point for the start angle and the runtime point for the end angle. And they have to be between 0 and 360 degrees. And it will change the start and end angle, so it would complete the circle. You can also disable it, so if you only wanted it to move while it's not disabled, and this is optional. And marquee we discussed in the gauge animation. To clipboard and from clipboard copies all the animations for the element. So let's say that we had the circle and we had a hide show and a percent fill. But then we decided we didn't want it to be a circle, we wanted it to be a we decided we didn't want it to be a square, we wanted it to be a circle. We could copy to the clipboard and then draw our circle, double click, and paste. There's nothing on there, so why it beeped. And do a from clipboard, and then it would fill in all the animations that the square had into the circle. Just a way to move all the animations. That's it.